This medicine. Dr. Chaudhry, thank you for joining us. How are you today?
Assalamu alaikum, Muhammad. I'm doing great. How are you?
Walaikum salam. I am well. I am well. Not too shabby up here in New York. How's Florida treating you?
Well, it's 78 degrees, sunshine, no clouds. So I
So
think it's
very
treating me
well.
well.
Oh man, that is great. That is great. Well, I want to thank you for making the time today. I mean, being a doctor, I'm sure you have a very busy schedule. So thank you for making the time and joining me here. I'm sure we'll have a really
Thank you.
good a really good conversation. So yeah, I'll give you the floor and let you introduce yourself. Tell people who you are, what you do, and all that jazz.
So can you just tell me a little bit about yourself and the format of the podcast? I mean, I know my wife, Asma, you're talking to her tomorrow.
Yeah.
She told me a little bit about this. So.
Yeah, absolutely. So my podcast, so it's called Tales of a CIO, and it's where I share anecdotes, I answer questions, I have guest speakers, and finally I do reactions. So I'll look at news articles, many of them that kind of frame things as workers of the problem of the economy right now, and I give my reaction or my thoughts as someone who's worked at the executive level and I know how companies spin things. I've been there when they spin things. And with the guest speakers, what I'm trying to do is introduce professions or career paths to people, as well as share different experiences. Because I can sit up here all day and talk about my life. People want to hear about other lives. I can share my story. They want to hear other stories. Not to mention, I haven't had every job. So, having someone in healthcare and education and project management and business and sales and marketing, bringing these unique stories and perspectives here is valuable because you're going to have college kids who are like, I don't know what I want to be when I grow up. I'm a freshman. I'm doing my gen ed courses. I don't know what I want to major in. And if I major in something, I don't know, like, what steps have other people before me taken to be successful, right? How did they do X, Y, and Z? So
Right.
that's the purpose of bringing diverse experiences here, because people cannot, college kids especially, they can't go out there and pull the stories from people, right? They're shy, they're introverted, and it's easier when we kind of bring the information and spoon feed it to them so that there's more accessibility. And hopefully it empowers college kids when they hear different career paths and they say, okay, now I know a little bit more about what this is like. I want to pursue this. Or likewise, they might hear someone's story and say, you know what, it sounds like that's actually kind of miserable or not for me, right?
Mhm.
I want to go into something else. So
Right.
that's the purpose of this, just casual chit chats with professionals in all walks of life
That's
and
great.
conversations that cross all the spectrums.
That's great.
Yeah.
So were you born and raised in the U.S.?
Yeah. So I was born in Long Island. I was born in Long Island, and I consider myself a New Yorker because I was here in New York until high school. I did high school in the New York City area. I went to college at Rutgers University, Newark. I majored in psychology, class of 2012. And
Okay.
then after that, I was in the industry during college. I was working in tech from day one, from 2008. And yeah, I started as a help desk technician. I moved into project and product management. I moved into director level roles, and then in 2017 I broke the C level, and I worked in federal government as a chief, and then I also worked in the private sector as a chief information or technology officer. So it's been very exciting. It's been great, and I've lived everywhere. I've been in California. I've been in Texas. I've been in Massachusetts. I've been in New Jersey, New York. I've spent some time in Chicago as well as Minneapolis. Um, so yeah, I've even been to Florida actually I've done some work in Tampa.
Okay.
So yeah, so that's fun. When your wife mentioned she was in Florida, I asked her immediately, "Are you from Tampa?" She mentioned you guys are in
Yeah.
Orlando, but yeah, I've done work in Florida as well. So that's the cool thing about me is I've been everywhere, and now I'm back in New York right now for the
Right.
time being. But as a consultant, my work, it just rotates me everywhere, and it's fun. But as I get older, I'm also like, I can't wait to kind of settle down, inshallah.
Okay, all right. Yeah, so that kind of gives me a little bit of a guide to what you're looking for. I think we may be able to do another one or two later in the near future as well. A couple
Absolutely.
of other projects, but I think today maybe just on career path and things like that. I think that would be a good topic.
Yeah.
If that's something that's okay with you, because I think it's relevant in the sense that whoever's listening, especially the target audience that you have, uh, if they hear voices or have tangible, uh, something tangible behind just what they're hearing, like they can contact somebody, they can talk to somebody, that type of thing that's accessible. Exactly. I think that's big. I think confidence to be able to do that is big. So sure, yeah, I think that's good.
Yep. So, let's hop into it. Tell me, a little bit about what you do right now. Like what things are you involved in and what kind of work are you in?
Yeah, so I'm a board certified pediatric dentist. I've been practicing as a pediatric dentist since '99, and I graduated dental school in '94, and then I practiced 3 years as a general dentist, and went back to residency in San Antonio. Did 2 years there, and since then I've been in private practice of pediatric dentistry. So that's what I'm doing currently. There's a couple of other things other than pediatric dentistry that I'm also working on at the moment, but my main focus right now is still treating patients. I have 2 offices, managing the offices and managing the staff. So that's what I currently do day in, day out.
That is amazing. I mean, pediatric dentistry is definitely a specialized field. I know because in New York, everyone is trying to do either general dentistry or cosmetic dentistry. You don't actually find a pediatric dentist is a drive here. It's a drive here. Even in New York City, it's not convenient. You have to basically, honestly, almost go to like one of the children's hospitals and then find them, the doctor office center or whatever that's like right next to the hospitals. You don't find them like just on like this avenue or on that street. So it's definitely a niche field.
Yeah, I mean, it's, if you consider an average pediatric residency takes 5 to 7 or 8 on a larger side. Yeah. A residence, and it may not be more than 50 residencies. I mean, the numbers are quite small. Yeah. In the larger areas, it may be a little bit more difficult, and maybe in the rural areas, it's even less. Even it's more difficult to find someone. But it's one of those specialties where you have to love what you do, definitely. Yeah. And if coming to work doesn't excite you about treating children and the challenges of treating children, then it's definitely the wrong environment to be in, because it's a fast-paced practice. You have moments to work. Sometimes the procedures are on the shorter side compared to cosmetic dentistry. So you have to like the pace of it as well. And then obviously not just the patients, but then also the parent management. That's the other component of it as well.
Oh no, I'm sure managing parents has got to be it's got to be difficult, right? I'm sure it's got to be difficult because they always, every parent worries a lot about their kids, and if the kid has some tooth problem, they're crying. I'm sure parents are stressed, and that stress has got to be stressful for you. You've got to deal with that.
Yeah, it's and I think the other challenge is that the parenting skills and attitudes have sort of changed over the years. So I think they expect a lot more by doing a lot less, if that makes sense. So sometimes it is restrictive in terms of how you can do the treatment, what you do. But on the other end, nowadays the parents and the children are much more educated about the treatment options, things like that. So sometimes it makes it a little bit easier, just because technology and social media have made it that way.
Gotcha. So, where did you do your college and your dental school?
Yeah, so I grew up, for high school in Northwest Florida. which is like the Pensacola area, Panama City area. Uh, some people call it South Alabama, but it actually is Florida. That's where I grew up. I did my high school in Panama City, and then I went to a junior college for 2 years in Panama City. And from there, I went to University of Florida, which is in Gainesville, and I did my undergraduate studies there, and I was accepted into dental school there as well. So that's where I did my dental school in Florida. And then practiced in Panama City with my dad, who was a dentist as well.
Wow. Okay, so the legacy continues for you.
Yeah, well, I have two other brothers. One is Muhammad Chaudhry. I mean, can you imagine that name?
Wow.
But neither two had any inkling for dentistry. I was the one that did. Actually, I wanted to do either medicine or dentistry. Well, go figure. Desi kid. What other options do you have?
Doctor, lawyer, engineer. That's all the paths we have.
So, but actually, my parents didn't put any pressure on me, which was refreshing. At that time. Although on the other end, where we were in a small town, there were really maybe a handful of other Muslim Pakistani families. So we really didn't get that hardcore, grind about you got to do this or you got to do that.
Yeah.
But I chose dentistry as a lifestyle. I was glad that my dad was able to come home at 5 o'clock and spend some time at home and not be on call all the time. And, not see him on the weekend and things like that.
Wow.
And that's sort of where I picked it up on weekends, and I did odd jobs, just like every child does, work at grocery stores, work at fast food. But then I actually started helping my dad out in the clinics too, with patients and just holding the suction and, passing the instruments and things like that. So I learned a little bit of OJT, the on-the-job training.
I'll tell you this. You were definitely setting yourself up for success by getting that early exposure. I know that shadowing instills a lot of confidence because then you kind of learn how do you talk to the patient, what questions do you ask them, and being familiar with the instruments. I mean, getting that exposure over time, it definitely helps. It solidifies your interest at dentistry. As for me, you get exposed to the environment. I mean, some people don't want to be in a sterile environment where everything is clean. Some people, they think, I want to go into medicine, and then when they have to talk to patients, many who are under duress, nobody goes to the dentist routine. I mean, they sometimes do, but you're also going to have emergencies or people with cavities, people with pain, and that's high pressure. So for you to expose yourself early, longitudinally, even before going into dentistry officially, that was definitely good for you and definitely built up your confidence, your familiarity. So that's great.
Yeah, it was, part of it was interest, right? You want to have interest in that field, and then the opportunity to be able to sort of get your hands dirty sort of in that field, as opposed to just be an observer. So that helps in defining what the day-to-day is going to be like, as opposed to, hey, I'm going to rotate through a job and just go watch somebody for an hour, then go back and do my thing. Then it's a little bit distant. So if you're able to have that opportunity, it's really valuable. And what I always tell kids, and even I have 4 daughters, so the one that's graduated from high school, she wants to do dentistry, and she goes, Dad, can I come to your office? I said, yeah, you can, but I also recommend go to other offices. Go see how other people deal with patients and the other type of practices. You want to get like a different aspect, different way of doing the same thing, and then what you like, then go do that. It's not just, hey, come watch me and this is the way I want you to do it.
Oh, absolutely, and you're right. There's different. It's not like. Basically, A to Z, you can go in different orders. Like, it's always, you want a similar outcome for the patient, but your technique might be different from another. They're still the best practices, but, they're going to be taught different things, especially if they go to a different school, or likewise, they work with different populations, or they train differently. So that's very good that you're cognizant and teaching your kids that as well.
Well, you're absolutely right. There's, they say dentistry is an art, not a science. So or there's actually a book, The Art and Science of Dentistry. So there's the basics are the same, right? Everyone's taught the same, but then the actual delivery is so different, and that's what you have to feel comfortable with, knowing that there's multiple ways to do the same thing, and you're still going to get a good positive outcome.
100%. So when you were in college, I'm sure the dental requirements were similar to today. So you had to do sort of 2 classes of biology, 2 classes of chemistry, 2 physics, and then organic chemistry, right?
That hasn't changed.
It's still the same. Okay, good. Because I know for pre-med, because I was pre-med. I think the pre-med requirements have gotten even worse. They've added biochem and anatomy, but I'm glad the dental ones haven't changed.
So I think dental and medical really mirror each other quite evenly. So yeah, it's. I think it's actually when you get into medical or dental school, then it sort of differentiates. But even then, the core classes, the first almost, I want to say 12 months, are exactly the same for both fields.
Yeah. Like I know, I have friends at Columbia, and I know Columbia's medical and dental school. Actually, you're a single class for the first 2 years.
That's right.
Yeah. So then you go your different ways. They are going to their clinics. Medical is going to the rotations. I thought that was interesting. So after you finished dental school, you practiced for a while before going into residency, which is interesting because I know my friends, a lot of them either do the 1-year general practice residency like immediately, or if they're interested in orthodontist or they do it right away. They don't practice and then come back, because for what schools tell them, and this, I don't know how true this was for you, a lot of schools tell them don't do that, because once you get that practice like salary, they said it becomes hard to go into the mindset of going back to a student, right? They said that shift is hard, especially the finances, because some residency programs, I think, I don't even think they're paid, or even I've heard horror stories where like some of them you have to pay for the privilege of being, of being trained. So what was that like for you?
Yeah, so I was, really fortunate that my dad supported me in my dental school, and then when I got out of dental school, honestly, I didn't want to do anything else. I was done with studying. I was like, this is too long. I've been doing this too long. I can't do it. And, my dad told me, go into surgery or something. I was like, no. I said, I'm not even going to do 1 more year. I'm ready to practice. Yeah. So I actually ended up joining his practice. And where we were, like I said, a smaller town, there was only one other pediatric dentist. So we were getting a lot of patients that were kids. I was seeing a lot of kids. I didn't actually mind seeing them. It's just I didn't have enough confidence in what I was doing in terms of is this the proper treatment. So before I did my residency, actually, there was a 2-week mini residency in New Jersey, UMDNJ.
I know UMDNJ very well.
Okay, yeah. I mean, we can talk environment. That's totally different. I mean, get out alive every day type of environment. Yeah. But they were offering a 2-week mini residency where it was a paid residency. You go there, you stay on your own, but then you get integrated with their residents. So that really gave me a really good understanding of what pediatric dentistry is like, what the education is like, that type of thing. So from there, that's when I decided, hey, listen, let me try to pursue this as a specialty. And the first person I asked was my wife, because I said, we've got 2 little kids. Do you want to go back? I think the income level is going to be 0 or non-existent. And she was the one that really supported me. She was like, yeah, she's like, go for it. We'll be fine. You do what you have to do. It's only 2 years. It'll be fun, so. And that's when I told my dad, and it's like, Dad, I'm going to go back to school. And he's like, well, if you would have listened to me when I told you, you wouldn't have to go back now. So he was really, really kind enough to support me during my 2 years as well. So that was a big plus. I mean, that not everybody has that chance. And even during my interviews, honestly, I interviewed at Florida. The program director was like, look, you've done your undergrad here, you've done your dental school here, we know who you are, we'll take you, but go outside somewhere, go to another program and expand your horizons, learn a different way of teaching. And at first I thought, why is he saying that? But then when I actually got accepted into San Antonio, I realized that that was probably one of the best advices I got. And even the program director at San Antonio, they had, I think, 5 positions, and five were paid with a stipend, and 2 were non-paid, and those were for dentists that had already been in practice and coming back to do the residency. So the program director said, "Look, you're from Florida. I used to teach there. I know what you've been taught. You've been in private practice. You can take one of these non-paid, non-stipend positions, and we'll accept you, or you can go through the whole process." And I was like, "That's fine, no problem." And honestly, those were the 2 best years of my educational career. If someone ever asks me, I always say it wasn't high school, it wasn't college, it wasn't dental school, it was my residency.
Wow.
And why do I say that? And I tell kids this all the time that are considering. I said, look, the higher you go in education, it's a filtration process, right? So it's you filter, and what's left is the cream of the crop. And why is that interesting or exciting? Is because usually those are the type of people that are highly intelligent and they're self-motivated.
Yeah.
You don't need to kind of get them out of bed to come do something. They're not the moaners and the gripers and the pessimists. For the most part, they're self-motivated, optimistic, and that's where you really enjoy. That's where you really learn. Is when you're surrounded by people that are the same way. So I would say that was a great experience for me, and I look back at that, and that's what I really miss, actually.
Wow, it sounds like it was a really good experience for you. And I'm curious because I keep track. I have many friends in healthcare, and I'm always asking them questions. What was the patient population like where you train versus where you work now? Would you say it's a similar population? Would you say
it's a similar population. Yeah, it's very high decay rate. There's a lot of work that needs to be done, and my training was in San Antonio. It was the highest decay rate in the country, probably. So the amount of work never really fazed me because we did most difficult cases on a daily basis.
Wow.
So my training was phenomenal. I would say it'll rank up there as the top or one of the top in the country at the time.
Yeah, that's definitely very exciting. And you mentioned UMDNJ, so I went to college in Newark, and actually a lot of my friends are either in the medical school or dental school in Newark, right? Newark being the only dental school we have, so a lot of my friends are there. And now I'm old enough that most of my friends are like either in residency or in fellowships. If they're on the medical side, and on dental side, they're like finishing up the residencies and whatnot. So I would always follow them and listen to them, and because it was a pub, they have like the public dental clinics, being a state school. They would get all sorts of interesting cases. I mean, they would have people who haven't been to a dentist in years. They would have people who needed total like reconstruction, denture implants, all sorts of things. It was a busy shop, but it made for good practice. And it looks like you got a lot of good practice where you trained, which is very good for you.
Yeah, I mean, UMDNJ, obviously, like you described it, San Antonio, I would say if you're going to go for a training program, or if you're thinking about specializing, go where there's high volume and they do a lot of different cases. So it gives you a broad experience, and maybe some of the unique cases you'll never see in your career, but if you do, you know how to manage it, and it gives you confidence. I think that's the main thing, especially if you're going to go into private practice. It's not so much the name where you trained; it's the amount of experience you get and the type of training you get.
Yeah.
Some places you go, they're the name brand school, Ivy League type of school, but the training may be limited or restrictive, and but you have the name. So I think if you're going into research education, that helps a lot.
Yeah.
Or maybe from a marketing standpoint, but I think really like hands-on stuff is just go anywhere where you get a lot of training.
Oh, 100%. So, you said you have 2 practices right now, right?
Yeah, so after I started, I actually sold my practice in Panama City, and we moved to Orlando. That's where my wife's family is, and I think long-term we wanted to be here. So then again, I sold my practice there. Then over here, I had the chance to join a practice or start from zero. Again, my dad gave me great advice. He said, look, why don't you just suffer for 6 months but start your own practice, you'll be your own boss. So that's what I did.
Yeah.
And then I expanded and I bought another practice. I have a little entrepreneur in me, and not sure, I make the best decisions all the time, but the idea was to grow it to more than one practice. So at one time I had three. I sold one, so I still have two at the moment. And where I have associates working, I've introduced an orthodontist into the practice as well. As far as myself, I don't do clinical dentistry in the office so much, but I do hospital dentistry where we're treating kids under anesthesia and doing like full mouth cases. So that's what I do.
Wow.
And then days that I'm not in the hospital, then I manage the practices and work on my other ventures as well.
And let me ask you something. So do you have an MBA? Like, how have you learn how to manage, multiple practices and businesses? Like, where did you get that acumen?
So no, I didn't. I do not have an MBA. I did actually look into Kellogg, the School of Business in Chicago.
They had Northwestern.
An MBA for dentists. I actually applied for it and I got in, but I never took it because I was busy in private practice.
Yep.
The learning part of it, I think, was mainly just, I don't know, my parents, they're entrepreneurs and business people, so I think there's a little bit of acumen there. And then just the general interest in the management of it, the managing part, I enjoyed that. How do you run a business with employees and also managing costs, inventory, things like that. I was a mathematics major in undergrad, so I don't know, maybe it's that logical aspect in me. I'm not afraid of numbers type of thing. But I do not have any formal training in running a business or businesses. It's just, one is common sense, but then the other is, taking a lot of CE courses, things like that, and talking to others that are willing to share information and kind of guide.
Gotcha. You mentioned CE, which reminds me of, I have friends who do like their continuous education and keep their credentials up to date. What is the process like for a dentist? Every year, how many conferences do you have to attend, or how much training do you have to undergo to stay current?
Yeah, so it's a minimum, depending on the state that you're in. It's for licensure, they expect a certain number of credit hours that you learn. So it's going to be anywhere around 30 hours, let's just say ballpark, per year. As far as conferences, Muhammad, back in the day, you'd fly all over the country and do it.
Yeah.
So then it was like, hey, social media is there, and technology caught up, and so the conferences started to dry up a little bit. Then COVID really shut everything down.
Unfortunately.
So everything is really virtual now. You can get a lot. So as far as going to conference, unless you really want to be there or do a hands-on course, I think you can get really a lot of the information just online.
I have friends who are podiatrists, pediatric surgeons, and one of them I was talking to, right? I was talking to Dr. Aslam recently, and he was kind of agitated. He's like, now Stryker reps, these people are just sending you gift cards for like a local restaurant. He's like, there was a time they were with you. He's like, now these reps don't even show up. Like, he's like, they're phoning it in. They're telling you, go enjoy a dinner by yourself. He's like, what is this? I want to hang out with other doctors. I want to hang out with the medical device reps. I want to see the person from Stryker. He's like, they're giving me like a $200. He's like, I can take my family, but he's like, I don't want to. I go to the conference to get away from family. I don't want to take my family with me to the local restaurant. Where's the hotel? Where's the traveling? And he was kind of agitated. And I thought it was funny because I understand what he's been catered to. I understand what he's expecting. And it is funny. I mean, if a rep was like, treat yourself, you're like, I'm a doctor. I can do that anyway. I want you to wine and dine me.
Yeah, I think COVID, right? It's like zero contact or minimal contact, and how do you maintain that relationship? And it's like, hey, here's a $50 gift card, remember me, But I agree with him. I think the most education is maybe not just the course itself, but being able to have, meaningful discussions with other professionals that are like-minded. I think you learn a lot, you gain a lot from there.
Oh, 100%. I mean, that's the important thing of, and that highlights the importance of networking is that people think networking is just about like knowing a lot of people, but honestly, it's also about bringing in their perspectives, learning what they're up to, because people in different parts of the country are doing different things. I mean, dentistry in Florida is going to be different from like, the middle of West Virginia, right? I mean, a city versus
That's
a
right.
rural area. And seeing what sort of like he loves, and many of my friends actually love talking to doctors from community hospitals because they're like the shortcuts they have to do because they don't have a lot of resources. They're like, it's insane, and it's like it teaches us to think differently because we have everything at our disposal. But if we can be less wasteful, if we can find shortcuts like that, it's very helpful. So that's definitely important.
Again, art and science, right? Art
Yeah,
and science.
art and science.
Yeah.
So let me ask you something. I know a lot of people think that they want to pursue healthcare probably at the suggestion of our parents, and I know one difficult thing is obviously getting just through undergrad, getting through undergrad with the A's in biology, chemistry, physics, organic chemistry. What was your undergrad experience like, and how did you make sure that you were the best of the best? Like, how was your studying style? How did you take all your classes seriously? How did you avoid distractions or clubs or fraternity and all that stuff that unfortunately college it has a lot of distractions that kids they're not used to because their parents have guided them and protected them from all these disturbances growing up K through 12. How did you navigate college and make sure that you were taking care of yourself and your business?
So, after high school, I did 2 years of community college. So, I guess grade 13 and 14, I was still at home.
Yeah.
And then when I got accepted to the University of Florida, I went there, and that was a culture shock. I mean, it was.
How so? Tell us.
It knocked me out. I mean, in the sense, when I was at the community college, I was doing great. Grades were phenomenal. It's against the environment's great, small classes. I'm sitting there in a class of 15, 20 students looking out the window. I can see the beach and the wave runners going and there's sunshine, and right across the street. Come to University of Florida, it's the largest university in the state, 30 plus thousand students, general ed classrooms, whether it's biology or whether it's economics or English, it's, 300 plus students.
Yeah. No,
And
tough.
then the professor walks in and starts lecturing, and I'm like, there's no roll call. Nobody cares if you show up or you don't. Some days the class is full, some days it's empty. Professor doesn't care. You're on your own. Food is an issue. Everything becomes an issue at that point. So it was a big adjustment period for me at that time, and I think my grades probably suffered at that time. Uh, as far as staying out of the other stuff, what they say is like in college, Monday to Thursday, the American principle is, you study hard and Friday and Saturday night you party hard. You know what I mean? So I was fortunate enough at the University of Florida at that time. There were a couple of the Muslim Pakistani students, and one or two actually lived in Gainesville with their mom. So we would just hang out Friday nights and Saturday nights, go to his house, have dinner, things like that. Luckily, growing up as well, I had in Panama City, we had a good mosque there. So we're familiar with Friday night halakas or Saturday forming a youth group or something. So I had an affinity for going to the masjid, so I would go to the mosque in Gainesville too, on free time. So I think that really kept me away from maybe the party crowd and those type of distractions. Although one or two friends they were leaning toward that way, but then the others, it was like when you're in a group, it's like the herd mentality. So there's more of one kind. That's probably what you're going to end up doing. So we were kind of on the non-partying type. And but I think again, it's just the type of friends you have in college, man. I tell my kids all the time, what you end up doing is not going to have anything to do with who you are, who your parents are, what they've taught you. There's going to be none of that. The only thing is going to be what type of friends you have and which direction they steer you in. And you can fight that all you want, but that's just the reality of it, And I mean, sort of goes into our belief thingy as well. What the Prophet ﷺ said is, you want to see the character of a person, see who he hangs out with, or who he surrounds himself with. So that's sort of how I stayed out of that. It wasn't anything magical. I think I was just fortunate to have good friends, and then we would do extracurricular activities too. There was sand volleyball. We'd play flag football. We'd have teams for softball. We joined the intramural leagues, and then there were all Muslim students as well. So kind of kept it that way, where the free time was really tied up to staying busy in that perspective. But the challenges are there. I mean, you see it all the time. Whether it's Muslim, non-Muslim friends, they're falling into that.
100%.
I had a Pakistani friend of mine who was my roommate, and then I had another American friend who was from a high school friend, and his lifestyle when we started rooming together was totally different. So you have to set boundaries, you have to set limits, and sort of kind of keep them. If I do it again, I wouldn't have a non-Muslim roommate, and even if they're Muslim, I would see what type of habits that they have, and go from there. Because again, it's just there's no checkpoints there, And now it's hard enough, like social media now, even in a home. But when you're by yourself, there's no checkpoint. So you have to sort of say, hey, what's going to help me stay within my comfort zone. That makes sense. Maybe old school, but I think it's like those are like basic principles that don't go away. So even like my kids, I don't really give them a lot of details. I just tell them, look, your friends are going to determine which direction you go in, so you got to make sure you have a good friend. That's it. Who, what, when, where, how, why, they just need to be. And it helps if they're Muslim, because then it gives you a baseline of where to start. That connection is, I think it's pretty strong. It's a comfort zone, and like I said, it's a solid baseline. I don't know. It's not the fantastic answer or anything that you.
No, but I agree with it.
But it's again, good friends. I don't know how else to put it. You just gotta have a good friend or good friends.
Yeah, I definitely agree and resonate with all of that, because I know going to college was difficult for me, because you're exposed to, like you said, for example, the lecture. When you go from a high school in a nice white suburban town to Newark, first of all, the population in Newark was like very gruff. I said this is a tough environment, urban environment. And then college professors don't care. They're not there to cater to you. There's no kid left behind. So you have to be on top of your stuff. You have to be like, look, my parents are paying 10 grand for a state school, which was criminal, like per semester for me to stay here. I think every class came out to like $200-$300. So I was like, yeah, gonna go in, and good Muslim friends, pre-med friends, gunners. So that was definitely good for me. But there's so much like self-regulation that has to take place. I mean, you have to go to all the classes. It doesn't matter if attendance isn't mandatory, because like I promise you, I don't know how many classes the professor was like, yeah, no, it's all PowerPoints. Like, well, put the PowerPoint online, you'll be good to go. No. The professors at our school were only required to put enough PowerPoint content so that you could pass the class. That means get like a C. And then they're telling, like, they're saying stuff orally, and they don't put their recordings online. But like my econ professor told a joke or something, and that was like on the exam, and I was mad because I saw the joke, but I was like, yo, like this, people who aren't there aren't even gonna know that this is niche.
That's right.
And but it's hard, man. It's hard, like having to study yourself. It's hard. Also, the breaks between classes are crazy. You have like a 3-hour break. You're tempted to watch TV. You're tempted to play around, and even if the next class is chem and you have to freaking study, you're just like, oh, I have 3 hours. And it's, oh, I have 2 hours. Now it's, oh, I have an hour. Now it's, oh my God, what happened to the time? Right? In high school, everything was back to back, and that routine is so good for you because there's no time to think about getting distracted and all this. So, no, self-regulation and good peers, good friends. I mean, you need that.
Number one. There's no other way around.
Like I majored in psychology, but my major was pre-med, and I'm so lucky that I had friends who were pre-med and were serious Muslims. They're devout. We would pray together in the campus center. Yeah. We'd have we would bring the janamas, and they were very, very good-hearted people, and I'm friends with all of them today. Like I have a fiance, we're getting married this summer, and she's so surprised that all my friends are doctors. She's like, "Don't you have any non?" I said, "No." I said, "These aren't my doctor friends, quote unquote." I said, "These are my college friends." They turn into the. But I said, when I knew them in college, I said we were just college friends, and I said, now I look at myself and I go like, shoot, I know. We have a spinal surgeon we hang out with. I have a podiatrist we hang out with, anesthesiologist, internal GI, and I'm just like, I'm very lucky. I said I have the whole hospital in my crowd. Like, they're all here.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's definitely helped me. I mean, even if I work in tech, I know how to, I know how to regulate myself. For example, like I've worked with clients who are sort of laissez-faire or like laid back, or even in government. Government is a very chill environment, but I was always the most strict person there because I was like, no, like I mimic my friends. My friends are serious, mature, very solemn people, and I bring that attitude to work, right? Even if I'm not, I see how they behave. I see how they talk, how they conduct themselves, and you are the company you keep. Like you said, it's 100%, and that that's definitely something you keep for yourself. Like I'm sure even now, like even after college, you're definitely very selective of the company that you keep now, and likewise the company that your children keep, because like it starts from the very beginning. As soon as they're walking and talking, that modeling takes place. Like they are going to model the people to hang out with. So I'm sure you're very proactive in that regard.
Yeah, and again, like I said, even growing up, we were fortunate that the people, the friends that we had, they were good friends. But like I say, I think our youth nowadays, maybe I'm talking about my kids as well. For them to understand that, hey, if you have a friend and they're Muslim, it sets you at such a common ground.
Yeah.
That relationship, because that relationship is not just between you two, it's between you and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So, and you guys can each have that relationship with Allah, and then that makes the connection between you two so much more common, and you don't really have to work at a lot because so much of it is just understanding and knowing that your thought process are the same.
Yeah.
It sounds very simplistic, or maybe whatever. But like you said, when it's the day to day and the application of it, then it becomes difficult. But if you're in that surrounding, then it eases. So why not make life easy for yourself? Studying is hard enough. Going to class is hard enough. Taking exams is hard enough.
Yeah.
Why do you want all these other complications? Especially like from a friend perspective and having to manage this, that. But when you have common ground, which is Islam, then it's a lot easier. And I'm not talking everyone being ultra conservative or that type of thing, but just that common ground that, hey, yes, I have a Muslim friend. They're not on the far end of the party lifestyle or whatever, but they're actually practicing to some extent. Then that helps a lot.
Yeah, no, that definitely helps a lot. I mean, like I actually, my friends helped me with keeping the beard, because I know when I started college, like I had like the chin strap and the pencil beard, and in high school I just had like the goat, because I went to high school in white town, right, very white town, and I would just have the goatee or just like sometimes just a mustache, and then I go to college and all my friends have the dadi, they all have the beard, and I'm like, let me. It encourages you too. I mean, when you're with your crowd, you feel encouraged. You're like, I can say stuff like inshallah, like we'll hang out later inshallah, I wouldn't say that with my white friends. Or you're encouraged to keep the beard. You don't feel weird carrying the janamaz in your backpack. You go like, yeah, I could just pray here, and they'll watch us. We'll take turns on the sidewalk on the other side of campus. Just do the quick namaz. So that's definitely A plus. And I hope people are encouraged to keep not be scared to keep company, because I know my youngest brother goes to college, and he's like, it's disheartening sometimes that people actually try not to hang out with the Muslims because they don't want to be seen as like a specific group. They don't want to be seen as like conservative people, so they're afraid to hang out with people, even if they're not conservative. I mean, colleges are actually quite liberal. But sure. He's like, yeah, it's sad. He's like, if you say Assalamu alaikum, they respond, oh, hello, or and he's like, I hate that. He's like, I hate that. I hate that, Muhammad. I don't know why people are doing that. I don't know what trend is taking place. And I was like, yeah, it wasn't like that for us. But I said, look, you guys are also living in a more stressful time. Right? There's a lot of years between me and my youngest brother. So I'm like, I can't even relate. Like, you guys have different challenges, no doubt. More anxious crowd than me and my friends had to live through. Right? We had it easier, alhamdulillah. Little bit easier. Not easy, but easier.
Yeah.
So let me ask you something. What advice do you have, just based on, you know, what advice do you have for kids who are in college and are looking to get into dentistry? Because I'm sure it is never easy. People say that once you get into dental school, they're like, then you're done. Like, dental schools screen out everyone else, and once you're in, like, you're in. They're like, they'll make sure you graduate. They'll take care of you. They have resources, student wellness, health, therapy. But my friends who got into med school are like, yeah, no. They say even out of 200 kids, they say about 5 to 6, unfortunately, fail. People think once you're in, it's like a guarantee you will get your degree in 4 years. But what advice do you have for people who are in college who, think that it's going to be easy? They need to hear some real truth. What are the cold hard facts about getting into dentistry? And then even after dentistry, it's not that you're going to set up shop and make $1 million. I mean, in cities there is saturation, and that's something that also needs to be addressed, right? Reimbursements are not how they're going to be if you were like in a rural area. So what cold hard information or advice do you have for people who are
Well, these are like huge topics, right, that you just kind of mentioned. But so if you are undergrad and you're applying, listen, no matter what admissions officers or your friends or your family, what they're telling you, it all boils down to two things: grades and test scores. Okay? You can go do mission trips for 5 years and save, 5,000 teeth. If you don't have the grades, you don't have the test results, that's not going to get you. So the main thing is concentrate on your grades and concentrate on getting good test results. The DAT.
Yeah.
Look, beyond that, it's an adjunct. It's not the core. So don't waste time on the adjunct and when you're failing in the core, which is the grades and the test. Does that make sense?
Oh, 100%. So, I see people trying to do the volunteering and the shadowing and the research. It's
extra,
not gonna...
but it's not the core. So concentrate on that. Let's say if that's, and I would say that's up to upwards of 90% of what they're looking for. So that's the only advice I have for undergrads. Can you do all this other stuff? Do whatever else you want, but make sure that's what you concentrate on. Is that?
Yeah, it's sort of like, before you put your neighbor's house out, right? If your neighbor's house is on fire, before you put that out, make sure your own house is taken care of. Like, make sure your grades and stuff. And I see kids doing this, like they're shadowing like every week for 8 hours. I'm like, dude, that's a whole day. Why are you shadowing? Why are you doing research at the dental? That's cool, but the dental schools are massive. There's 100+ kids doing research, right? That's not enough. And shadowing, look, man, everyone's gonna be shadowing, and they just want to see that you've done some time and dentistry is for you. They don't want to see 1,000 hours of over 4 years. Like, that's not, the numbers will not matter to them, right? And I know this as a layman, right? This is stuff, but it sucks. It sucks people who are. They're trying so hard, or some of them. I mean, this is crazy, and you probably see this. A lot of them will like take a train for like an hour to Newark to work at the student clinic at the dental school because they think proximity to the dental school helps. So they're like, oh, if I do research at the dental school, I'm in. If I shadow someone at the dental school, I'm in. Like, oh, the guy I'm shadowing is a professor at the dental school. Oh, his letter will help me out. That guy has written dozens of letters, man. He's a dentist who happens to teach, but. It's not that he has a final say. Like, it's grades and test score because these are what they publish. This is what they publish online.
Right. So my advice is very simple. That's what I tell, and I get asked that quite often. Is, hey, concentrate on your grades, concentrate on getting a good test result, and then do the other minor stuff when you have time. That's all. As far as in dental school, it's not hey, once you're in, you're gonna make it. The first semester, maybe the first 2 semesters. So I was told that the amount of classes that you take or the amount of content that you have, 12 credit hours is considered a full-time college student.
Yeah.
16 hours, you're kind of on the pushing it type of number per semester. I'm talking undergrad. Yeah. If you do 18 or 20, you're like maybe borderline psychotic because that's just crazy stuff, right? And not to say kids don't do it, but it's just rare that you see that, right? So between 12, so this is the first semester of dental school. same as medical school. And in the second semester, you're taking all these biochem, neuro, biology, everything. Is it going to like 36 hours, 32 to 36 credit hours? I mean, that's just insane, right? So
wow.
That's as a reference, right? From an undergrad perspective to, hey, how hard is that first semester of dental school or second semester? That's the number of credit hours. Just think of it in credit hours. So it's almost like 3 times or 2 times what you're 2 to 3 times what you're doing now.
Crazy.
In undergrad, and that's all core classes. I'm not talking about 2 core classes and 3 electives in undergrad. I'm talking every class is a core class. So it's not, you're really going to have to be dedicated. You're going to have to be, from a scheduling standpoint, make sure you're on point with that. Then obviously it's not really mentioned a lot, but you got to eat right and you got to exercise. You got to have the mind and body going, because it's a grind. It's a grind of wear on you, and you have to be mentally, physically, be at a good point to go forward. But no, it's not easy. They're not in it to just have everybody pass. That's the didactic part, the clinical part. You have to have requirements. You have to be a bit of a go-getter.
Yeah.
Make sure you see the type of patients you want, meet the requirements, things like that. So whoever's saying that it's gonna get you through, I think that's false advice.
Yeah.
I think it's the opposite, where it's on you primarily to take advantage of what resources are there, or if they're not there, then find it.
Yeah, I see parents here tell their kids, so first in college they tell them just get through, or like if you get through orgo with an A, like that's in college, like that's like the hardest trial is just getting through orgo, right? That means you will make it, and then the next step is getting the acceptance letter, and then they're like, okay, now you're done, like you're basically a dentist. And I'm just like, no, because Rutgers Dental School, and I know from my friends, they're like, yeah, it's the worst. They're like, they have A, B, C, D grades. Meanwhile, the med school, they're like, the med school is freaking pass fail. And we're learning the same stuff in the beginning. They're like, it's horrible. it's like and they also mentioned that like in med school, there's actually, yes, they have therapists. Yes, they make sure there's a lot of wellness. There's a wellness club, lifestyle and medicine, they call it. And my friends who play basketball, keep themselves in shape, keep their mind sharp, their body sharp, because obviously it's very stressful on the body, all of this learning. But no, they're not there, like you said, to have everyone make it through, because at the end of the day, I mean, if you're not fit to operate on people, they're not going to get you. Even if you got in, that doesn't mean they're going to get you to the finish line. They'll do their best to empower you, but not enable you, and those are 2 different things.
Correct. I mean, the resources are there. You have to utilize them. But then as far as the basics, it's all on you. You have to study. You have to get the grades. You have to meet the clinical requirements and all of that. It's different if they say, we don't have teachers, or we don't have enough patients, then it's not on you. I mean, then it's on the school to provide that. But once you get to that level, all those resources are pretty much there. So it's a balancing act between all this other stuff. But again, it just boils down to making sure you study, you pass your classes. And then if you want to consider a residency or something like that, then really what's it going to come down to? Grades. It's grades. That's what the first thing they're going to look at. Everyone's going to meet the basic requirements, and then maybe shadow in the clinics that you want. If you're into oral surgery, go hang out with the oral surgeon. If you're into orthodontics, go hang out there. But again, don't do that, and then your grades go down. Does that make sense? It's all, I think at the end of the day, it's still a lot of grades.
It's all numbers. Like I will say this, medicine is about humanity, but the medicine admissions process is all about, it's very numbers oriented. Like they don't even care about the person, they just care about the numbers, right? It's very empirical, very clinical, very, black and white. And, people are trying to do all sorts of stuff. I mean, they're trying to do like bench work in the lab and publishing papers. And I'm like, again, these are all like, it's the cherry on top. But the most important thing is that because these are the numbers they publish, right? Like med schools will publish the average GPA of their people, the average MCAT of their people.
Absolutely. The ones that are on the low end, they're doing something special, but they're not doing, but they still have a base minimum, You're not going to have a 2.0 and, you did something special and you're going to get in. No, it's going to be, whatever the base of that average is on the lower end of that average, that's what you're going to, and in addition to that, they did something to get them in. Or you had phenomenal grades, and then you did a little bit of extra, and then you get it. So then that averages out.
Yeah.
But again, at the end of the day, keep it simple. It's about the grades. It's about the tests. Do your best, and then the rest is in the hands of Allah. So.
Oh, 100%, 100%. I mean, at the end of the day, you can only do, like Allah says, right? Tie up your horse and then leave the rest to me. I mean, I have people who, it's frustrating though, because people twist it. Some people would be like, oh, I'm not going to study. Like, if Allah wants me to pass, then when I guess the answers, it'll be the right answers. And I'm just like, oh my God, no. He says, do your best, like literally your best. Like, study until you are, not burnt out, but like study until you're tired. Like, give up the TV, give up the socializing, the hangouts. Study your best, then leave it up to Allah. Allah doesn't want to be your study buddy, man. But, inshallah, that's definitely important. I think that helped me a little bit junior year, because junior year was, for me, the toughest, because that's when you're taking the real classes, like the hardest classes. And it's tough because, my God, the first years of college, like, when you make it to the third year, you're like, shoot, like, a lot of the people to my right and left are gone. The classes are smaller. I mean, your biology lecture of 200 plus has become microbiome lecture of 30. And that's scary. Yep. That's scary because when you watch people dwindle down, you become very conscious that, I'm firing on 8 cylinders and I'm making it through. But some of these guys are firing on 4. Like, some of these guys aren't even trying and they're still making it through. And you're like, wow.
Yep.
Yeah. But anyway, inshallah, Dr. Chaudhry, it's been nice having you on today. Let's definitely talk more in the future, because I actually want to talk to you more about something you talked about, which is, community engagement, youth activism in the masjid. I have a lot of thoughts on that. I'm told you have a lot of thoughts on that. So let's definitely get something on the books and speak on that, because that's so important today. I mean, parents are scared for their children because, unfortunately, children are drifting away. The masjids are, astaghfirullah to say this, are getting emptier and emptier. I'm seeing a lot of migration from my masjid, where I know the people my age are still here, but they're saying they're busy with work or they're just not going. So yeah, youth programs is something that I'm involved in. I'm told you're involved in, and I would love to, have a nice discussion just on that, because there's such a meaty topic.
I would be honored to do that. Thank you so much for the opportunity. And whenever you're ready, let me know.
Hi, sounds good, Dr. Chaudhry. Thank you, and inshallah, I'll talk again soon.
Okay, thank you, Muhammad. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam.